Hello, I'm Maria from Sew Local Stitch Lounge. Today I'm going to show you how to make this kitty wallet. It's designed by Choli Knight from Sew Desne, and it's a free pattern on her website. Here are the supplies I'll be using for the kitty wallet. We're going to be using a piece of canvas for the exterior and 2 different quilting cottons for the pockets and the lining inside. We've got a tiny little piece of fusible web, and that's going to be to do the applique with the wool felt. Got some thread, 2 zippers, some woven interfacing, and a little piece of fusible fleece, and then your instructions and the pattern. So I've cut out all of the paper pattern pieces, and now I have to tape together the ones that belong together. So you can see where it's marked with triangles or diamond shapes, and it says A5, A6, A5, A6. So these 2 are going to go together. I need to cut off one of these lines, and I'm going to join it like this. And then the same thing with these ones here, A1, A2. These 2 are going together, and then I have A3, A4 to join. The exterior fabric first. We're going to need the 2 pieces that have ears, and this one here, and it says wallet back F. So it says cut from outer fabric. We're going to use that one. That's going to go aside. We also need this little piece C, which is a zipper tab. If you've lost that, this is what goes with it to show you how many you need. So this says cut 8 from outer fabric. Okay, so I've got these pinned on, except for this rectangle one. I'm just going to use the rotary cutter and my ruler right on top of that. To cut out these tabs, because I need 8 of these, I really don't feel like cutting a whole bunch of individually, so what I'm going to do is measure these and just use the rotary cutter, and it's 1 1/4 inch wide. And exactly 1 inch tall, which basically is the same as the lines right here on this fabric. These pieces, I'm going to use the scissors. So one of the great things about this wallet is that it has a kitty face on it, but if you'd rather not have a kitty face on it, you can cut this straight across, get rid of the ears, and then you can just leave off the applique. Okay, so now I'm going to cut out the 2 coin pouch pieces. And these are the ones that I'm going to use with the smallest piece of quilting cotton. Mine has cat eyes, yours might have something different. But I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to line it up with the pattern so that it looks straight like that. And I'm going against the grain line, drawing because it would make my eyes go sideways. So that's why I'm just going to do it my own way. Okay, so for the remaining pieces, which is the credit card pockets, bill slot, and foam pouch, we're going to be using the other lining. The foam pouch piece needs 2, so I'll fold this up like this, so we can get 2 out of there, and the rest we can just pin and cut. Got a little notch here, so I'm just going to cut out a little triangle like that. So we need 2 pieces of the fusible fleece that are the same size as this. And this, one of the easiest ways to cut interfacing is just to put my pieces on top and cut around. And if you can, cut the interfacings slightly smaller than your pieces. You can do that by pulling the fabrics over to the side a little bit so that when you cut along the edge, they end up slightly smaller. That way, you don't have any of the glue touching your ironing board or your iron. I'm going to keep those together with this pattern so I don't get confused. These two pieces for the coin pouch, they don't require any interfacing at all. And everything else is getting the Shapeflex, which is the woven fusible interfacing, also known as my favorite interfacing. And the pieces that say the heavyweight interfacing, we're gonna actually just do 2 layers of the Shapeflex on that. So that's gonna be this one and this one. Those 2 are getting 2 layers. Everything else will get 1 layer. So this is how I'm gonna set up my interfacing. This is one of the pieces that gets 2. So I'm gonna put 1 there, 1 there. This is the other one that gets 2. So it's gonna be like this. So we're gonna iron every piece of interfacing to its fabric. And I've got the Shapeflex with the glue side up. You can tell which one is the glue by touching it. It's bumpy. I put that up like that. Put my fabric down, make sure that there's no glue with interfacing showing, or not very much anyway. And then rather than sliding the iron, we're just gonna press down and hold it there for a few seconds and then move it around. It's sort of like a walking motion rather than sliding, because if you slide it, then it can cause wrinkles that stick. For the pieces with double interfacing, we'll just iron them down 1 at a time. Got 1 on, I'm gonna throw the next one down. We're gonna start with the credit card pocket, and we need to fold and press the mountain folds and the valley folds. So the way they have you do it in the instructions is to use a marker to mark just the edges of each crease, and then draw a line, press it, and then sew it. But I'm gonna use my hair marker, which means I don't need to draw lines, and then you don't have to get rid of lines. So that's why I prefer this. So I'm gonna do the mountain folds first. Just gonna mark a little bit there. We want these to be folded like this, because they're mountains. So I'm gonna flip it over. Hi, David. Hi, are you helping?
So very helpful.
I'm gonna use the hair marker to mark a crease along here. And I wanna make sure that it's square. Even though I'm going by my lines, I also wanna make sure that the edge of the fabric is square with the ruler, so that I'm not making a crooked line, because it would be pretty easy to mess that up. So I'm just going across with the hair marker, and just pushing into the fabric using the ruler. You can see a line there. You can also see it on that side, and it makes it so that it's almost just creasing for me. I don't have to do very much for it. So just do that. Now I'm gonna do this one. Got my 2 mountains ready to sew. So before I sew those, I'm going to mark and crease the valley folds as well. And I'm doing these on the right side of the fabric so that they fold the opposite way. So the hair marker works by just pushing into the fabric and making a sharp crease. So that's gonna fold like that. And when you fold it up, lay it on your mat so that you can check that everything's pretty square, because sometimes when you do this, you end up with your piece being kind of crooked. You just want to make sure that your lines are perpendicular with the edge of the fabric so that your folds end up being straight. And if they're not, you can just redo them. So now we're going to stitch along the edge of each one of those folds, even the valley folds. You can press with the iron as well to give it a really good crease. I'm gonna do the same thing for the valley folds. Okay, so now we're gonna put the snap in. This is my pocket, my card slot pocket. I've got the little notch right here at the top. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter. It's just that the card slots are going this way. And we'll put this on top at the bottom. And I'm gonna try this way of marking the snap. So I'm gonna pull this apart. I'm gonna use the thicker one. I'm gonna take this off. I'm just gonna use the legs to make a mark. I'm gonna just center this and push down, and we'll see if we can see the marks through the paper. Yeah, I can see where they are. It's a little indents. I'm gonna just go over them a little bit right there and right there. We need to cut those, not cutting through any other part of the card slot pockets. So I'm just gonna fold those and do a tiny little snip with my giant scissors. I can push that through like that and put the washer on top, and then we open them up like a do-tang. Okay, so the last thing to do with this piece is to sew the dividing lines for the card slot. David. So you can either trace from the pattern, or you can measure in 3 inches from the edge, which is what I'm gonna do because that's easier. My ruler's 3.5 inches, and I'm putting it on the 1/2 inch mark here. My measuring was a little off on that one. Okay, so now we're gonna grab the bill slot, and make sure when you have your pattern on that your notches are lined up like this, just so that you know how to orient them and how to put them together with the other pieces. So we've got this. Let's mark the mountain fold first. And then we'll do the valley fold. So the mountain fold, I'm gonna mark on the wrong side because I want it to fold with the good side out. And that's how the hair marker works best. So that's gonna be like this. So we've got those marked. I'll fold the valley. And the mountain. And then again, just check that it's square on your mat, and then we can press that and stitch those folds. So now the bill slot is ready, and we're going to put this together with the card slot. You'll line up the notches like that, and we're gonna sew across with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now we have the two lining pieces together, and now we're gonna find the spot and put the other half of the snap in. So I'm gonna keep it closed because those two are supposed to match up when it's closed. And I can feel the dent in the snap, and I'm just gonna make a mark right here for the center. And this time I'm gonna use the washer piece to mark the lines so that it lines up just where I want it. So now we're going to prepare the zippers and sew the zipper tabs to the ends. So both zippers need to be cut down to 8 inches first. And when you do that, we're going to cut off the metal bits there at the end, and that way we won't accidentally sew into them and break needles. So I'm going to cut those down to 8 inches. So now they're 8 inches long, and now I'm gonna sew the zipper tabs to the end of each one. So what we're gonna be doing is sandwiching each zipper between 2 tabs, like that, with the right sides facing. With the closed end, it's gonna be pretty easy to sew across that. With the open end, I'm gonna use the glue stick to hold them in place. And we'll be sewing across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just like the rest of the wallet. Okay, so I trimmed that down to a 1/4 inch, and now I'll pull the fabric back like that. And then I'm gonna press it quickly and kind of trying not to touch the zipper too much because I don't want to melt it. So in the instructions, it just said to do one, but we're gonna have to do the second one very soon. So they're both ready to go. Okay, so now we're gonna take the coin pouch front, that's the smaller one. We need the zipper with the tab. You can pick whichever zipper you want. This zipper is gonna be a little bit more hidden. I actually think I wanna use the gold one here. I'm gonna put this here, and then I'm gonna take the ear facing piece and I'm gonna place it right side down along the top. So we're sandwiching the zipper in there. The zipper is facing up so that when it's sewn, we'll be able to see this. Now, if you're choosing to not make it look like a cat, you can easily just cut these straight off and you'll just have a rectangle piece instead. I'm going to use the zipper foot to sew down here with a 1/4 inch seam. I don't want to sew past where the zipper pull is because it's really bulky and it'll push me off the road. So I'm going to, with my needle down, lift the presser foot. I'm going to pull the zipper open. Sometimes it's hard to get past there. And then I can finish it. So my zipper is slightly longer. I'm just going to trim those edges down. So now I've got the wallet back. I'm going to take that away. You can see how along the top there's the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Everything else is 1/2. That's where the zipper is going to go. So we're going to take this piece, and I'm putting the zipper right side down against that top edge like this. And I'm going to pin that, and actually I'm going to glue it and pin it in place. So next it's time to add the coin pouch back, which is this little piece right here. And we're gonna glue. And then we're gonna add this in on top. Same situation here. I'm gonna stop and open the zipper so it's not in the way. Make sure everything's still lined up. So I want to keep this part facing that way, but I'm going to press the wallet back part away from the zipper like that. So I'm going to trace 6 whiskers onto the papery side of the fusible web. We're going to put the shiny side of the paper onto the felt. I'm going to put a layer of fabric on top, and I'm just going to hold it down for about 10 seconds. We'll see how it goes. It's good. So I'm going to let that cool down, then I can cut them out. Okay, so now we're going to put the applique pieces where they belong. That actually, we need to peel the paper backing off first. It says in the instructions that you can put the applique on the paper and then pull it out from underneath. I don't think it's gonna work very well. I am going to see what I can do this way.
You can use the squares to measure. You can see on one, you're 1 square in, and on the other side, you're 1.5 squares in.
Now we're going to cover it with the pressing cloth again. They haven't fully fused. I'm going to flip it over and press again from the other side. This time I don't need a pressing cloth. I'm going to go to a narrow zigzag stitch and kind of short and close together as well. I'm just going to sew around the edge. That's one done, and I'm going to do that to all of the whiskers. So I finished sewing around the applique, and now I'm going to take the earpiece and put it on the other earpiece. So I'm going to flip that over top, and we're going to be sewing this seam here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And this is going to be something you want to take your time with and make sure you have a really nice smooth seam. Make sure you pivot at your corners just so that those ears are going to look like ears. I'm doing a little mark, a 1/2 inch around, just because I want to make sure that I have a really nice edge here. 1/2 inch is a big seam for something small like this, but that's what I got. So I did go back and fix my seam because I didn't feel like it was straight enough. So I'm gonna trim the seam allowance down. I'm gonna make it pretty small around the ears, and I'm gonna do some other clipping as well. I'm gonna clip into the corners like this, very close to the stitching. I did cut my first line of stitching, but my second one's good. Right there. I'm gonna cut one seam allowance down a little smaller. Thank you so much, David, for all your help today. This is called grading your seam allowance, and it just makes it so that you don't see a line of the bulky seam allowance inside. I'm also gonna do some little pie shapes out of the top of the ears because they're outside corners. Okay, so I think we can flip it and we'll see how it looks. How cute is this? Yeah. You did a good job. Yeah, you did a good job. I'm gonna need a tool to get those corners out. So I'm using a skewer chopstick thing. Now I'm gonna press this. Okay, so I pressed the ears. Okay, so we've pressed the ears. Now we're going to fold the front section over like this, so it's sort of tucking over top of the zipper like that. And you can see how it's going to end up. This is going to be like this, and you'll have this nice little pocket hidden in there when it's done. So we want it like that. So now it says to baste the edge of the ears, and what that means, we're just sewing the edge right here. We're just gonna stitch from here to here, close to the edge, to keep it from moving around on us while we sew the rest of it. And basting technically means to use a longer stitch, which you're going to sew over top again later.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea, David. So this is the outer wallet, and we're now gonna take out the lining that we prepared, and we're just gonna check and see if they are the same size. Let's hope. Mine are good. So I think if yours are not the same size, you can either adjust this seam, this would be easy enough, it's just a straight line, to make it bigger or smaller. Okay, for the next step, we need one piece of phone pouch, your second zipper that has the tabs already attached, and then the exterior of the wallet. And I'm gonna use pins and glue to keep this all together. So we're gonna put the zipper face down here on this edge here. And I noticed that my zipper ended up being slightly longer, so I'm just gonna trim that later. I'll just leave it like that. And then this piece with the fusible fleece attached is gonna go right like this. So in the instructions, it talks about putting the batting on separately, and I think they're using batting that's not fusible, so we don't have to count it as a separate piece. It's just part of this. So I've got fusible fleece, phone pouch, zipper, and exterior wallet. And I'm gonna add a couple pins just to keep it from moving too much. And we're gonna be sewing down there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance using the zipper foot. Right now I'm gonna stop and move the zipper pull. So now I wanna press the zipper away from everything else. So basically, I just need to pull this up like this. I like to do it in a couple steps. I'm just gonna push against like that. And also that way. Then I can pull it like that.
Should we talk about your thumb for a minute? Are we gonna avoid that completely?
Okay, so the last time I was filming, I had a full thumb on my left hand. I now have a slightly smaller thumb on my left hand, but everything's gonna be okay. And I have learned to be a little more careful with brand new knives.
Yes. The emergency doctor says it will be probably a month before it is mostly healed, at least a month.
Yeah, it's all gonna be good. It's fine.
Okay.
It's a little bit awkward. Yeah. I forgot to move the zipper, so I kind of got pushed off the road here. See, I can do it with one thumb. I'm gonna just back up and straighten this out a little bit. It's not pretty, but that's okay. It's inside. Okay, so we've got the phone pouch right here. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna press everything away from the zipper. So now we're gonna put these two together and let everything else here fall together. So we'll line up the edges. I'm gonna have this side up. So we have this small pocket. That's just going to be all laying down flat like that as it is. When we come to the zipper with the tabs here, we're gonna have the zipper tab folded in towards the exterior. So it's going to be pushing in this way, because you have to flatten it one direction. So we're gonna do it like this and put a clip on that there. And the same thing on this side. It's gonna be pushed in like that. And we're gonna sew around everything except for leaving a 3-inch gap here in the bottom of the foam pouch. Something like that. So the seam allowance is supposed to be 1/2 inch. I find that kind of big for getting past the zipper. So I'm gonna do mine more like 3/8 or even a 1/4 inch here. I am gonna do the foam pouch with a slightly bigger seam allowance so that it ends up being a little bit smaller and it's gonna fit into the wallet a little bit better. And by that I mean, so I'm gonna be sewing here like around 1/4, and then right past the zipper I'm gonna move in so that it's a bigger seam allowance, which makes the foam pouch smaller. We're gonna go like that. So I'm starting here in the foam pouch. And now here I'm gonna move to a smaller seam allowance. And I should have the zipper open, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should. And now we increase the seam allowance. So it's all done. I just need to trim corners and seam allowance. I'm mostly trimming down where it's very bulky and in the phone pocket area. Just don't trim where your opening is because it makes it a lot harder to sew it closed after. So now we'll turn it. Hopefully you opened your zipper. If you didn't, good luck. It is possible. So this piece is going to be stitched up and then it will be tucked into the zipper like that. So we'll sew very close to the edge along there. You could do that by hand too if you wanted it to be even more invisible. So that's stitched up, and now we tuck it inside. You can kind of pull on the zipper tabs to get them out a little bit like that. Once the zipper's closed a little bit, that seems a little easier. Then we're gonna press it, and then it'll be done, because it goes like that.